And we are live. So I just wanted to make this. I know there's a few people in here. I just wanted to make this video explaining all of the stuff that Jeff was talking about the other night, and I couldn't post the corresponding videos and pictures up, so it's not showing anybody's in here, but there's people in chat. So, well, I can watch it back anyway. So, for the first video, I'm not very smooth at this. I'm going to do my best. The bear one is okay. There's two videos here. Do you have it in front of you? Do you know what the name of it is? Video 1628.
I don't. Well, no, I don't know what it is. I just know it's 40 some seconds in length, I think. But you go ahead and play them both. Oh, they're both interesting. I think it's going to be the second one that you have. That's the one that we're looking at. I want to talk about something that happens on the video. First of all, let's preface this and tell everybody, I don't have a video of a Bigfoot here. Okay.
Right.
What we're looking at is some videos that Doug and Adam have caught on their live cam project. For those who aren't aware, they've got 9 live cameras that are on a active property, highly active property, that there's been several sightings at. They get peanut butter jars opened. It's the one where the lids are all lined up by color and all that. So people have seen that.
Okay,
but
so this
video
one's Yep, go ahead.
We're going to watch this video where, if this is the right one, and this might be this is going to be the orb.
This is the
video.
orb.
Yeah, so what we've got here is, in this video, first of all, you'll notice little green boxes automatically pop up when these cameras sense movement, okay? And when they sense a movement, it's given Doug and Adam immediate alarms that go to camera 3 or go to camera 7. These are 4K cameras. Most of this footage we're showing you tonight is taken at night, so the IR lights are on. You will see some insects and stuff show up in these. And you can usually tell pretty easily when they're insects, especially when you slow them down, toggle through them. But where that green box is right now on that screen, there's going to be an orb that comes at the camera and then swerves to the left, okay? And in this video, I think Doug backs it up back and forth in this so that you can kind of get used to see where its flight path is. Right. Now, what's interesting is it's going to be chased by a second one coming out from the right of that, where that green, the right side of that green box, see that little white birch tree there? There's going to be a second orb that flies out chasing it right on the same path. And when he slows these down as they get to the camera, you're going to see how perfectly round these are.
Yeah, it's not just dust particles.
Yeah, it's not just dust. When they change trajectory and change the angle from coming at you to moving to the left, you still see how round they are. So
and plus, they wouldn't trigger a camera off anyway, right?
Well, a lot of the little bugs that fly by and stuff that do.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just weird. It's phenomena,
There we go.
There's the one coming up. And he's going to show that one coming at it over and over. And then at the end, you're going to see this second one come out.
Oh, yeah.
Chasing it. You see him? See that?
Yeah.
So in real time, when we saw it, it was like boom, boom, like two curveballs being thrown right at you, chasing each other.
There's the first one. So that's the second one.
Yep.
That's weird.
So it's just crazy how we see these things. Of course, we're not saying, oh, these are orbs or they have a plasma body, or we're not making claims like that. It's just simply we look at this and say, what are we looking at here, right? So that's what's so interesting about 9 live cameras that run 24 hours and they store everything they catch up into the cloud, is when you see something, you really have to analyze, what am I looking at,
Okay.
So that was an interesting video. Just, you know, it's like we've seen a lot of different bugs and stuff fly by, but if you want to pull up another video that you got there, we'll go over that one too. I don't know how many Doug had sent to you and the stuff he had shared, but
Okay, let me just pause this and
so
remove that other one.
okay, yeah, okay.
Yep, there we go. So, do you want to narrate it first, or will I just play it?
No, go ahead and play it through. This is an interesting this is an interesting video, not because of what we're seeing in the video, but I'm going to tell you a story about, and you know, there's some things that we've seen that are so crazy and unexplainable that we just don't go on record and talk about them because I really don't know how to explain it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is on this particular camera. When we set these up, the very first night, Doug and Adam is on site all the time. Okay, he's out there. He stays in a camper on this property. So when we call, if Doug calls him and say, well, we're having a technical problem with something, he can go right out to that camera, right? Now, if it's at night, you know, a little leery to do that, I suppose, but
right.
Next morning we're out there fixing something if something happens. So, but in this video, you're just seeing this big black bear, so it gives you an idea, one, of the clarity of a 4K video with the IR. He's got, I mean, you can imagine if a Bigfoot walks by a camera like this, there is no blob squatch happening.
That's $1 million. That's $1 million shot.
Absolutely definite. So what happened was, and I'm going to share this with you, just understand that I can't prove this, okay? But anybody who knows Doug and his credibility and the work that he's done, not just setting up these cameras, but his career. I mean, the production of Monster Quest and the scrutiny that they put into every single episode, making sure they weren't covering somebody who was, you know, pulling a hoax on them, things like that, right?
I have to analyze everything.
So when Doug says, hey, look, this happened, this is not an individual that I doubt what he's telling me, okay? I know exactly whatever he says happened, it happened. And the very first night, these cameras, Adam had spent a couple days mounting them. And most of these are mounted, as you can see from the angle, they're, you know, 9-10 foot in the air, okay? So we don't have typically, you know, bears messing with them, things like that. And they're lipstick cameras. They aren't typical game cameras. They're probably about, you know, fairly small, an inch and a quarter in diameter. They're about that long, drilling holes in a tree to embed them in and then running the power behind it to a buried power cable. So we have buried cables running. They have these cables running out to power these cameras. And then there's a big network, Wi-Fi network set up so that they can upload to the cloud as they're recording, okay? Now, I'm only telling you this so people can envision what this is going to be like when they make it go live. So let's say you were watching this camera once it goes live. At the bottom, there'll be a record button. And so when you see something, you can start recording and share that little file you just recorded with your favorite Facebook group and say, I saw this on camera 3 on Doug's network, Doug and Adam's network of cameras at 1:15 in the morning, right? So, and there are different IR. I know they say, where's the IR emitter? It's built into the camera, but there is 3 settings. It'll be off, on low, or on high, okay? And you can change that. And then each one of these cameras has a speaker system embedded in its location that will broadcast either a howl, you could trigger it to broadcast a wounded rabbit sound, and you could trigger it to broadcast a wood knock.
Wow. So
they can actually just now and then just make a, so what happened was the very first night the cameras Adam was trying to get them all set up live, right? Had 9 cameras that he had to not just get mounted, get powered, get focused, get aimed right. But he's on a cell phone talking to Doug, and Doug's watching it on a computer at his home in his office, telling him move it this way, move it. They were spending days getting these set up.
I can
And that
imagine.
first night that they were live, Doug's watching this particular camera right here. And back in this line of trees from the right to the left, he watches an 8-foot tall individual walk through those trees right to left at a normal walking pace. Right behind it, there's a 7-foot tall one. And right behind that, there's a 6-foot tall one. And he knows the height because as you see those little green boxes that sense movement, they're estimating height digitally on the when Doug's watching. It'll say that individual's X amount tall because it's just measuring it from distance, movement, speed, and it's calculating mass and height. So that's why I say when he says this was an 8-footer followed by a 7-footer followed by a 6-footer, all in one single line, walking right to left. This happened about 5 to 10 minutes after he had broadcasted a wounded rabbit call on this particular camera. He saw this and he was literally about in tears in his office. I mean, breaking out in a sweat like, holy smokes, we just captured this holy grail footage, right? And he texts Adam and says, call me right now. Adam calls him, says, what's going on? And Doug says, listen, whatever you do, because Adam had just gotten these cameras uploaded to where they will store in the cloud. We're not just watching it live, but it's storing the footage. Doug says, whatever you do tomorrow morning, do not erase the cloud footage on camera, whatever number this is. And Adam says, why? What happened? And Doug tells him. And Doug's so excited. I mean, he's just so excited as he's telling him this. And he says, can you believe it's the first night that we're watching these live, just those guys? And Adam says, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to kill me. But I've got 7 cameras are linked to go into the cloud. And it got dark when he was out there. And he said, I didn't get the last 2 linked in. And this is one of them.
Oh, he must have been so mad.
I mean, if you heard a grown man cry before, that is what was happening. And so, and had I heard that story from anybody other than Doug Hajicek, I'd say, cool story, bro. But I'll tell you what, I talked to Doug. He called me when it happened. I could tell in his voice how absolutely just on edge he was about what he had just seen. It was just incredible just to hear him describing it.
Should happen again, though.
It's just, this is that type of an area where, if anybody was to go back and watch some of the videos, they're out there of this property of this person who owns this property is in Minnesota, where we're near the area that I spend a lot of time at. But what they've discovered is this: they leave jars of peanut butter out there. They get opened, they get cleaned up like they went through a dishwasher. And then what happens is the jars they leave some of them have red lids, some of them have yellow lids, some of them have blue lids. And they go out there in the morning and all these lids, they keep this individual or this group of Bigfoot, they line them up. All the red ones are in a half of a circle, and then it changes to yellow ones, and then it changes to blue ones. And they make little designs out of the lids. It's just incredible, the stuff that's happened on this property. That's why they chose this property to set these cameras up. But this is the camera angle in which Doug saw these 3 individuals that first night. So
now, is this a video where the bear disappears and then reappears again?
I don't know the whole story behind what happens to that. That's not this one.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the story behind this one other than just it may be that Doug sent this one just to show you how clear the image was. And I know for a fact this was the camera that he saw those 3 individuals on that night.
Man.
So
Okay.
just the idea of what people are, I mean, this is going to be a new addiction for people. They're going to sit up all night long watching these stupid cameras
Well,
once they go live to everybody.
I did that with Mark Copeland's videos down in Oklahoma there. He had some activity and he just left his cameras running and he gave me the password. And I would just sit for like about an hour before bed and just watch and listen.
Yeah.
And I never saw anything, but it was, you could always hear something, you know, and you didn't know if it was them walking around. So what, so we've got the, we have another video here
Yeah, you've got the video of this bear. Now this is interesting because this is a good example of, no, you've got a video that I sent to you in Messenger, the one that we haven't seen yet, where the glitch happens with that bear walking through.
Oh, I don't see it here. Where did that go? I have one here, but it's only a picture of what we just saw. Hold on. Let me see if I can bring that up. I must have missed that one.
You know, it's interesting because my mother is like 83 years old, right? I go over to her house. She actually has an apartment at like an assisted living place. I go over there, and on her big screen TV, she's playing that Eagle Cam thing, and that in Decorah, Iowa, they have a camera in a bald eagle nest. I think they've all grown up and flown away now. But for about a month straight, if I went over there, that's what she had on her TV all day long. And I thought, this is exactly what people are going to be doing when they have these cameras live. You'll be sitting in your office at work with that sitting in the corner of your screen, just watching it, you know.
Oh, Jeff, did you just send me that one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Let me just download it onto my desktop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay. So download. There we go. Okay. It's downloaded. So let's share that one. I'm getting slick with this now.
There you go.
Okay, there we go.
There's a little learning curve, but even once you figure it out, you still run into some technological glitches here. And that's really what this, okay, so in this video, what you're going to see is this bear walks through this camera, comes from the top of your screen, it disappears on the bottom. And then after it leaves on the bottom, about 5 to 7 seconds later, it comes back from the bottom of that screen back in, okay? And about mid-screen up, it stops and looks to its right like it senses something there. Now, what's interesting here is this is a technological glitch that doesn't seem to be a camera or an equipment glitch. This bear is going to stop like it freezes. But most of the time when you see something moving on a camera, when it freezes, it stops, hangs up, and then it goes. What happens here is as it's moving, it stops and it's moving its head around, and you see its head about 3 feet in front of it moving, and then boom, the rest of its body catches up with that. It's like it's superimposed itself forward. Now, what's happening is at the same time this happens, I'm not going to call it an orb. It could be an insect, but it doesn't look like an insect. Usually we can slow it down and see it, the wing flutter or legs or something hanging on an insect. But from the left side of your screen to the right, from an upward to downward angle, you're going to see something fly through the screen. And as it does this as that bear glitches. But if you watch the flight path of what comes through the screen, the flight path of what comes through the screen doesn't glitch. So if you want to go ahead and play the video, I think that people kind of know what to look for here.
Okay, here we go.
So this bear, again, look at how clear this bear is. I mean, imagine if that was a Bigfoot walking through there. But it walks out of screen here. And this camera here is about 12 to 15 foot in the air. So, I mean, it's really up there. This bear moves out of screen. Now he's going to come back in the screen. And you can see a counter on the bottom counting the, is it playing right now?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it is. the seconds aren't running on the counter.
Huh. Hold on. Yeah. Oh, this is when it comes back. For some reason, it froze there.
Okay, yeah. So back it up. Back it up. I don't know why the whole thing froze it. Okay, so
Yeah,
just let it go right here. Now you'll see the second counter running 14, 15, 16. Now this bear right here is going to stop and look to its right. It senses something to its right. But you're going to see it superimpose its head out in front of it as this thing flies by the screen. I don't know why this is slowing down and freezing up. It froze up again, Cornell. There it's just the video ain't playing in live time here.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it just totally skipped everything there. I don't know why it's doing that.
Okay, bring it back. Oh, wow.
Okay, so bring it back a little further. You see how it glitches its head forward and then the body jumps and catches up with it? But
yeah.
Stop watching the bear now and watch what flies across the screen as it does that. And what flies across the screen doesn't glitch. All the way across, it's smooth. It traveled in a smooth trajectory across that screen while the bear seemed to have glitched. And yet, if you watch the counter when it's going in real time, the counter just counts smooth as can be through that whole process. So you start asking yourself, if a camera glitched when that bear did that, how could it glitch where the bear's image, but not glitch the flight path trajectory of this orb?
Right there.
So right there, you're seeing it glitch, and coming across the screen is what flies by when you get it to play here.
Okay, so it happens right here. There's the orb or whatever.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And that orb did not glitch when it flew past that screen. So when, just something like that, can I explain it? No, I can't say what it is. I'm not saying it's some supernatural thing that affected the ability of the camera. But right now, Doug and Adam are talking to the camera manufacturers saying, can you explain this? And they can't. I mean, how does that bear, the image of that bear, do what it does while something else in that video at the same time is not doing that? I mean, it's smoothly transferring across the screen in movement.
Yeah, Dave, I think he's saying that. He's saying it could be an insect, but his point was
I'm not saying that it's an orb or it's a plasma ball or anything. Could easily be an insect. But even if it is an insect, that's not really the point. If it's an insect, why does the insect travel smoothly across the screen while the bear itself is glitching like that? The camera picture as a whole should glitch, not just the image of the bear.
Right, just that one spot, actually.
Just the head of that bear jumps off of its body up in front of it, and then the rest of the body catches up with the bear as this insect or whatever it is flying across the screen. It's not the fact that something's flying across the screen. It's not the fact that it's a bear. It's not the fact that it's at night or any of that. It's the fact that you have one part of an image distorting while another part is staying very clear.
It does it again. It just ran around the corner and caught up with itself.
Yeah. But yet the whole time we watch that bear, there isn't a time prior to that thing flying through that does that. Now, does that thing flying across the screen right in front of the lens screw up the depth perception of the camera and make it pixelate on another object? That would be a good theory, but it just doesn't make technological sense. You know what I mean?
Well, Doug would know the answer to that, wouldn't he? Because
he doesn't. He should know the answer to it, but as he watches it, he says, "How in the heck is this happening?" It'd be like if me and you were both on a picture, okay, like
Yeah.
on the same video and standing live next to each other, and I start glitching and you don't. You're moving smoothly through it while I'm glitching.
Yeah.
How is that possible? We should both be glitching at the same rate, you know?
Hmm.
So it's just another one of those things that when we see it, we say, what's going on here? You know, there's a lot of just weird phenomena outside of Bigfoot that when you catch it, you're like, you know, Adam's the technological wizard. Doug, when it comes to forensically going through a video and deciding if it's a hoax, and production video and lighting and cameras and lenses, he's kind of a wizard at that. Between the two of them, for both of them to look at this and say, I don't get why this is happening, that's where it gets confusing.
I like this one. So do you want to explain this one a little bit? This
Yeah,
is the
so
sign.
I don't know if we have the audio in this.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so I'll set it up and then you can play it with the audio cranked up. So what you're seeing here is a camera that's embedded in the face of a no trespassing sign. This sign is about 10 or 11 feet up in the air. So the camera's embedded in the trunk of the tree. The sign has a little hole in it on one of the letters where it's black. It's one of them red, white, and black no trespassing signs. And so the camera isn't distinctive from out in front of it. It's actually a black looking lens that's in a black part of the sign, I believe. And something, as this thing goes live, Doug had flicked on the IR on the camera remotely from his office. Had turned the IR on low, turned it on high, toggled it back to off. And as that happens, something walks up to the sign. We can't see it, but it starts banging on the sign over and over and over. And this sign, like I say, is 10 or 11 feet in the air. There are no, and I can guarantee you one thing, it isn't a person. There's no people on this property when this is happening. So if you want to play it and with it turned up, you'll hear the banging and you'll see the sign kind of move, vibrate as this thing's getting hit.
Why is it up? Okay. What's it doing?
It's not playing yet. I'm watching the second counter and it's not rolling.
It's doing.
It's not getting smacked hard. It's like something's like tapping it, you know, and like boom, 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 trying to figure out, almost like it's trying to get those IR toggle settings to go again. You know what I mean?
And that's attached to a tree.
It's 11 foot up in a tree. It's hidden in a no trespassing, metal no trespassing sign. So something is evidently from the back side of the sign hitting the sign about 4 or 5 times. And you can, like I say, because the camera's embedded in the sign, you can kind of see the wiggling of the whole thing as it's happening. But whatever it is, it never walks in front of the camera. But I mean, a raccoon ain't going to crawl up into a tree 11 foot tall and bang on a sign.
It is weird. All right. So they're removed. I want to bring up some of the pictures now. You want me to bring up the feather, the ball, or the red ball and the blue ball?
You can bring up the balls. These are what been using in the research area. They have the red one. Will show you the one I was started using.
Okay. I'll bring up the red ball first.
So if anybody wants to understand the research itself, they can go back and watch the other video that we did with Doug, where we talk about it in depth of how we use these balls. But I wanted people to be able to see what they look like. So this ball here is just you buy it in the $2 bin at Walmart, right? It's sitting on the seat of my kayak. That was prior to deploying it at any time. It has 6 black Velcro tabs on it designed to collect hair samples. And when we bring it out into a meadow that I go to, I throw it in the air, I kick it around, I kick it soccer style, and every couple minutes I'll pick it up and laugh at it out loud. I'll laugh at the ball, and then I'll drop kick it and try to catch it, and if I do, I'll laugh at it. And I do this for about a half an hour to an hour, and then I'll go to, if there's any breeze forecasted that night, I go to the downwind side of this 80 square yard meadow surrounded by 50-foot tall pines, poplar, birch. It's really not windy there even on a windy day because of that. It's a very small clearing. And I set the ball down, and I do this every Thursday morning, and I go back on Friday morning. And out of the 16 times I've done it for 16 weeks, there's only 4 times the ball hasn't been moved. And I don't mean moved like 10 or 12 feet. I mean, it's moved like 80 yards to the other side of the meadow usually. And we've collected hair samples out of the Velcro tabs. I've got 16 hair samples now, I believe it is, and had one of them so we could make sure we're on the same page. One of them was looked at, and it's translucent, no medulla, very fine and wispy, tapered end. It's never been cut. I mean, it's classic Bigfoot hair, so to speak. And so that's what the ball, I started using a red one, but then if you watch the other video, you'll understand the theme of blue and how we started incorporating blue in the items that I leave in this field.
Right.
Because we have a UV theory that we explain in the other video, that if Bigfoot was to be able to see in UV, which is one of the things I'm primarily trying to research here, we know that bears likely can. A lot of animals can. Doug talks about that. Caribou, cats, dogs, there's different animals that have the ability to see in UV. And if they can, blue is one of the colors that they easily see from a distance, especially fluorescent blue. And that's one of the themes to most of the items that we leave out there that I leave out there in the field. So you can pull up the blue ball. This is from 3 weeks ago. So after about 5 weeks, I switched from a red ball to a blue ball. And I did so kind of reluctantly, but we were starting to incorporate this blue theme into the things I leave. And I was a little worried, are they going to not like the blue ball and not come back, or not use it? And I thought, well, if they don't, then I'll just bring the red ball back next week, right? I'm doing it every week. I mean, that's the nice thing about this. If you deploy something out there in that field and they don't like it, you take it back, and the next week you bring something different. But in this picture, you're going to see, I had collected this. It has a hair in it. You can see the hair as it leaves the top of that tab. Very fine hair. And then if you can see on the bottom where it comes out, it looks gray, right? I mean, it's long. It's like 9 inches long.
Oh yeah, it's the whole length of the ball.
Yeah, it looks like it's a gray hair, but that's what I thought when I first was getting ready to remove it. But it's actually translucent. That's what makes it look gray. There is no core of medulla in it. There is areas where it turns like a whiskey color, where you can still see through it with a brown tinge to it, but predominantly it's almost clear. It's like a brownish milky color. But we've had that looked at. We haven't done the DNA on it, but forensically we've looked at it to determine that it hasn't been cut ever. And it doesn't appear to be anything that would come from a bear or a horse. It obviously is something that has the ability to pick up a ball like this and move it 80 yards and lay it back down.
Is that the continuation of the hair right there at the top of it?
Yeah. Now, what you're also going to notice is right around the middle of that picture, uh, going from that black Velcro tab kind of out to the left and downward and then to the right. That's not a reflection. That light color is a coating of sebum or skin wax and oil. And you can actually see where its hair has smeared through that sebum right there at the top and to the right a little bit in the picture. You see go up from where your cursor is, up and to the right, way to the right now. Okay,
Here?
right in that, yeah. So what you have is originally, I believe what's happening is we're getting a clear, this looks like it's a print that goes, and it's hard to see from the image, but it looks like it's touched the palm of its hand here around all the way to the tip of the pinky, like on the, like if it laid it like this on the edge. And what's happened is any fine, this is one of the struggles I've had, is any fine like dermal ridge lines or anything like that in a print, it, as it's playing with this ball, kicking, trying to mimic probably what I did by kicking it or through the weeds and grass, and it probably carries it under an arm against its body. It starts deteriorating the prints in it, but you start seeing where its hair, like from its arm, is swiped through that print, and that's what you're seeing right here, where all those little fine lines are dragging out of it. I think it's wiped, it's drug it across its hair.
Yeah.
And then if you zoom back out again now, on the very bottom right, where those predominantly white smudges are, those are really a thick area of sebum where it touched it with something. The other thing that so anybody, you'll learn more about this in the other video from Doug. He talks about the sebum between chimpanzees and apes and humans, and you know, we have skin oil that we secrete when you touch something, leave a fingerprint. Forensically, you could dust it and get the print to reveal itself. A Bigfoot seems to, like the Snow White prints that you see that were on car windows that appear to be like a dove gray or a white color. They haven't been dusted, and they aren't showing up because pollen fell on it. You know, it's showing up because the skin oil, it has a waxy substance evidently with these Bigfoot. And it's like if you were to put liquid candle wax, a thin sheen of it on something, and then when it's not dried, but almost dry and it's tacky, that's what this is like. It's very hard to wipe off of something. When I clean this ball off before it's deployed again, it takes some scrubbing to get this thing clean again. But we swipe it for DNA, and that's the whole purpose of using the ball. It's collecting DNA between the hairs and where this thing touches these balls. We take these samples. So I don't know if it's one individual or a family of them, but we'll find that out as we analyze all the DNA in the end. But we've got 11 sebum samples and about 14 hair samples over 16 weeks of doing this.
That ball tells a hell of a story.
Well, one of the other things that we're running into a problem with is, you'll notice, you probably can't tell in this picture, but this ball's a little bit smaller than the red ball. The red ball was 15 inches. And the problem I was having was I was getting hair samples, but I couldn't get a clear fingerprint where it had touched it and then let go. It seemed like every handprint or fingerprint ends up getting wiped on hair or carried around its body, and it just was getting manipulated. So I switched to this ball, which is about 10 inches in diameter, where you could literally palm the ball and carry it without having to press it against under your arm or something, in hopes that maybe it would be a better chance of getting a clear print. And I haven't yet, but there's other items we put out in the field to try to collect prints like that. We'll use a 10-inch piece of plexiglass, and then I'll put something underneath of it and lean that plexiglass against between the ground and a tree trunk like at a 45-degree angle, and I'll set something under it. This is one of the techniques we encourage people to use. If you've got a site where you're gifting apples or whatever, get a clear piece of plexiglass, lean it against a tree, and put that apple under it. Because not only is it going to take your apple if it's been taking them, but now it's going to touch that plexiglass to move it to get the apple. And now what do you have? You have a DNA sample. So, we just encourage people to start thinking in what are things that I can deploy in a field that will. One of the reasons why I use this ball is because I need to be able to prove that it's not a bear and it's not whatever moving this, right? First of all, the researcher that we're using this in is so off the good. There's no way it's a human, I guarantee you that. But also, for something to move it that far, a bear with claws, if you just put just minimal pressure on this ball, you would puncture it with a claw.
Right.
It's not a very durable ball. In fact, I could step on it and blow it out if I wanted to. But, it's just one of these items that it seems like its biggest, weakest link in its armor is its own curiosity. And that's why every time I put it out there, I play with it for about a half an hour and laugh at it. I'm trying to give it the idea that this thing is fun. And then I forget it and I leave. And I leave it there for 24 hours before I come back to get it. And this is an area that I mentioned this before. I kayak almost 2.5 hours to cover the 8.5, 9 miles to get to. And then I have to hike another mile just to get to where this clearing is. There's no people here.
That's a workout.
So, and I
you should,
do that.
You should call it Wilson.
Yeah.
Now, what's this stuff here? Is that just mud?
I believe it's mud. I on this particular time when I seen that, I actually pulled this Velcro tab off of the ball and saved it. We're going to have that tested. Right. Actually, if you zoom in on this picture to the very bottom left of the picture.
Like here?
Yeah, way down there. You'll notice that hair has two little what appear to be dirt clogs on the ball, right?
Yeah.
But they're not. The smaller of those two is connected to the hair. It's dried to the hair. And the other little dirt piece is connected to that piece. When I lifted that hair off, those two pieces were hanging from the hair. They aren't stuck to the ball.
Huh.
So I've smelled them. I haven't tasted them.
Don't do that.
I've smelled them. And they don't have any odor to them. And I just thought, well, if it was crap or something, you'd sure think you'd smell it, right? But I don't. And so I suspect that it's dirt. And I suspect that that's what's in the Velcro too. But just in case, on this particular time when we got the ball back, I pulled that. That's just an adhesive Velcro tab. I actually pulled that off the ball and put a new one on it to replace it because I want to have that analyzed and just ensure that that is in fact dirt. I think what happened is after it had gotten rid of the ball, or maybe while it was kicking it or throwing it, that at some point when it hit the ground, it just picked up some dirt in it.
Yeah,
I don't think it's material that came from the individual, but I don't know that for sure. So if in doubt, we better test it out. So
yeah. No, just to be clear, the videos are from Doug, right? I just want to make sure I put that in my description.
And it's not just Doug; it's Doug and Adam. I mean, they work in tandem on that video project. That video project is going to be producing a lot of material that you will see probably in the new Legend Meets Science 2 documentary that's going to be going into production. But part of that documentary is also going to be DNA that we're not only collecting here at these sites, but they're being forensically analyzed by probably it's the best lab in the world, and we're taking DNA. Doug's collecting DNA from different sites all over North America and having them cataloged. So this is an interesting deal. Doug was driving. I think we told the story last time. We just didn't have the
Yeah.
picture. Um, Doug was speaking at a conference up in northern Minnesota in Grand Rapids, I believe it was, or no, up in Duluth. It's a paranormal conference. And so there's some Bigfoot stuff there. There's a lot of psychics there. I didn't go to it, but on his long drive there, we were on the phone talking about one of the things that this research is designed at this particular site that I've just been talking about is that we're not putting any cameras out there. There's no wood knocking, there's no calling. Just going out there and leaving items that are themed in blue, giving them a 24-hour window, and then going back and picking them up and seeing if we have DNA on them, if they've been moved, if they've been taken, things like that. And it's just a long 5-month weekly process of collecting DNA. But it's designed to end in one big high-tech event.
Right.
So as we leverage its curiosity, it knows that there's game cameras that are painted fluorescent blue, strapped to trees that don't have batteries in them. There's no power. They aren't designed. They aren't there to take a picture. They're there because they're blue. And we've kind of conditioned this individual or this family of individuals to know that when it sees something blue, there's something good there. There's a polished rock or there's a piece of candy. I was leaving Bit-O-Honey candy out there, little pieces of Bit-O-Honey candy, which is like a maple honey taffy type stuff. At first, I was leaving it on the ground and it'd be gone the next time. And I told Doug, I said, this isn't working because I can't prove that a squirrel didn't eat it. And he said, well, put it in a baby food jar and screw the lid on it. So I started doing that. I started leaving polished rocks and pieces of candy like that in jars that had lids screwed on them. And I'd set them in front of a blue game camera. And and I always put the cameras in different locations. When I leave on Friday after picking up all the items, I don't leave anything out there. It's when I go back on Thursday, I'll hang those cameras up, put a treat in front of them. So it's just designed to get it to realize that there's no threat to go explore whatever you want to explore, take what you want to take, play with what you want to play with. Nobody's trying to take your picture. Nobody's calling out to you. I've become part of its routine. I don't know if it habitates there or if his group habitates there. They may live 20 miles away, but they know that every Thursday I'm coming with this stuff. And they seem to be working it into their routine to be there because in that 24-hour window, everything's always, the candy's gone, the jars are open, things are moved. I mean, it's not people. And it's not bears. Bears can't screw a lid back on a baby food jar after it eats something out of it. So
you're kayaking up this river in these conditions?
Yeah. So what had happened was I had found 4 target meadows that were deep in a forest that was near a river system. And I was snowmobiling it over the winter, and looking at Google Maps and exploring where are these meadows close to hiking trails? Are they close to roads? I wanted something that even in the middle of July during tourist season, nobody was going to be in these areas. They're just too far off the grid to make any sense for anybody to be there. And so I had come up with 4 target areas that fit that description. And so that picture there is part of the narrower part of the river that I take up into this area it actually gets heavier forested the further up I go into it. But I started by doing the ball thing. I'd play with it one day and leave it somewhere, go back the next, it wasn't moved. So I'd go to the next meadow and do it, and I'd leave it, and it wasn't moved. And finally, I got to a meadow, and the 4th one I tried, that's when it had gotten moved, like 80 yards across this meadow, and realized, and there was white sebum smears on the ball, and there was I didn't have Velcro on it yet. I just was leaving the ball. So it was the second time I put it out. It got moved again. And I started realizing, okay, well, how can I get a hair sample out of this? And that's when I came up with the Velcro tabs.
Hmm.
And just about every time I go out there, like I say, there's only 4 times out of the 16 times that it wasn't moved. But there's also some things that we're trying to reason with, and that's that we're in the middle of a really bad drought here in Minnesota. We aren't getting any rain. All the blueberries have dried up. Typically, they're in full bloom now, and there's just no berries around. And it's possible that these individuals in this group left the area for a week or two trying to find an area that had more rainfall or had this forage that they were missing here. And the thing is unless you're going to go all the way out to the East Coast or at least get out to Ohio, I mean, from here down to the Ozarks, from here over to Illinois, from here west all the way to Montana, and then way up north into Canada, you can go 400 miles in each direction and it's still dry. So my guess is if it was looking for something, probably within a couple of weeks, it just circled back to its area that it's used to habituating and realizing that none of these other areas had that forage. It's dry all over, so why not go back to where you're used to? So these
So,
pictures that you've been showing, the first one was the river. If the picture that you had up before this, can you pop back to that one?
yeah. 1 second.
So like I say, I kayak in about 8 miles, 8.5 miles from where I launch. I kayak upriver. So it takes me a little over 2 hours because I'm going against a little current.
Now, do you ever
And then,
get do you ever get wigged out going into these places that you know that these
yeah,
things will be in?
I used to leave really early in the morning, like at 5 in the morning, so that I knew that I'd be getting to the clearing at by 7:30 or so.
Right.
So once I get there and pull the kayak up, this is what I walk through. I have to walk through
Oh,
about a mile of this to get
wow.
to where the clearing is. And you can imagine walking through that by yourself in the dark.
Oh man.
It's not, there's strength in numbers just when it comes to your mental state.
Right. Right.
I mean, look, I don't think I'm a pussy. I'm not the bravest guy in the world, but I mean, I was in the army. I was in the infantry for 6 years. I've been big game hunting a lot. I've been around bears. I'm not the type to get really nervous about stuff. But when you start walking through an area that it's not like, oh, they could be here. I know they're here.
Right.
So one morning I left, I left pretty early. This is the last morning I started doing this at 5 a.m. I had went up there and was walking into the area, and it wasn't really that light out yet. It was just starting to fade into light from pitch darkness. And I don't like using flashlights, or I don't use anything electronic. I leave my cell phone in the kayak. I leave anything battery powered in the kayak. I don't bring any power into this area. And as I'm walking into the area, about halfway through to the meadow, back where my kayak is behind me, I hear this extremely loud wood knock. And I always operate under the assumption that maybe they're watching me walk in, right? So I don't, like I say, I don't want to call out to it. I want it to think that I'm not looking for it. I'm not trying to communicate with it. I'm just leaving stuff and then I leave. And I give it 24 hours and I come back. It's every Thursday. I come back every Friday. So when this wood knock happened, it kind of froze me in my tracks. But then I thought, well, just keep walking, just keep walking. So I kept walking, and there was another wood knock in front of me where the clearing is. And that's when I realized, up till that point, I always kind of wondered, do I just have one individual that's messing with all this stuff, or is there a group of them? That's when I realized there was more than one, because one of them was basically signaling he's here, and the one up in front by the clearing was saying, basically, okay. Like it's like one was just on the watch out for when's he going to get here, because they know I come every Thursday morning.
Yeah.
And so walking through these woods to get to the clearing, knowing, I've always wondered, do they come out an hour after I leave and play with this stuff, or is it 2 in the morning? But this idea that they're here right now, they're like right here.
Yeah.
When you're by yourself, dude, that's unsettling. I mean,
Yeah, it
I was
is.
that for the first time I really had some anxiety in this project walking in there. But I just went in and did the same routine, played with the ball, left it, hung the cameras up, put the treats out. I hang some blue flagging tape and a cedar branch and put a polished rock in front of it. Just the typical stuff. And went back to my kayak. And when I got back to my kayak, my paddle, I had slid into the cockpit. Something had pushed the plunger button and unseparated my kayak into two, or my paddle into two pieces, and one was sitting in the kayak against the seat and one was leaning up against it. And
Wow.
my life jacket that was laying in the seat had all three buckles buckled on it. They were snapped shut.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
And so it's just like typical stuff, kind of things that maybe a juvenile would do, just being playful, But I mean, you see this and like I say, if I'm in that meadow and I think I see movement, I don't stand there staring at the tree line. Okay. I don't want, this is all designed so that on the last night after 24 weeks of this, that little blue ball isn't going to be a blue ball. It's going to be a foam core that has 4 lipstick cameras aiming 4 different ways, 4K, full color, with a lithium battery hollowed into that foam core that will run it for 72 hours. Ball's going to be plastic dipped in blue, so it looks just like that ball. From 50 feet away, it will appear to be exactly like that ball. And all those game cameras that are up, that are blue, that it knows there's a treat there, they're all going to be powered. There's
So
going
you
to
got
be
one.
audio. There's going to be audio recorders out. So basically, what it's going to be is it's going to be the ultimate betrayal.
You got one shot.
I've gotten it so conditioned and used to the things I leave. It knows that every time it takes something, nothing chases it, nothing's tried to call out to it. It's such a non-threatening environment for it that it can express its curiosity without any risk, right? But that last night, I mean, even if it was to walk 60 yards away from the tree line towards that ball and halfway there say, whoa, I sense something weird here, it's too late. You're already on camera. So, it's cool that we're getting the DNA through this, but it's designed to culminate that last night in a very high-tech event. And like you say, if it doesn't work, you only got one shot. Once it's been betrayed and it senses the power and senses the IR, senses sound recorders, whatever it's capable of, I don't know what it's, but if it's capable of that, it likely wouldn't come back again. It knows that everything's changed now.
Just
But
don't go back alone. You'd have to go back with someone, right? Just in case they were pissed.
well, so there's been 3 different times that I've gone in there that I have a lynx that follows me along the shoreline. So as I'm paddling upriver into this area, a lot of times it's dark when I'm going in and it's light by the time I get there. Okay, so the 2 hours I'm traveling, I don't mind paddling in the dark. I also do that under the assumption that whatever, there could be a sentinel of this group that's watching me, and maybe it follows along the river from a distance as it kind of escorts me into the area. I don't know. But one night I had a lynx call out. Now, if you've ever heard a lynx call out in the dark, it is the most unholy sound you can hear. And if you're not familiar with it, go listen to an audio clip of a lynx calling out. It's not like a mountain lion. It's not a typical growl. It's not like a bobcat screech growl. It is a long, when you look at the size of the body of a lynx and then you hear its call, its vocalization, it does not seem like that thing should be able to make that noise. But when it called out, I just about crapped a load right through the bottom of the kayak. I mean, it was unsettling when that happened. And as it started getting light out as I'm paddling, I can see this thing just following me along. It's walking along the edge of the river, following me. It's curious. So the next week I went in there, I brought some fish. I brought some fish fillets out of the freezer just in case I saw it again. And sure enough, about halfway paddling in, I look over and see this lynx standing there just on the edge of the creek watching me paddle past. And then it doesn't like stalk follow me. What it does, it watches me and then it disappears. And then about 100 yards later, it's up in front of me again. So it like sneaks up in front and then stands there and watches me go by. And then it'll jump up in front again where I can't see it, but I'll keep paddling and there it is as I go by. So I threw a fish fillet out there and it ate it. I watched it eat it. I paddled a little bit further and he was up in front of me again. I threw another one out and he ate it. And then I started figuring out, okay, well, I'm conditioning this thing now too, whether I know it or not. Now every time I go in there, I got to bring some fish with me just in case that lynx is there. I seen him for about 3 weeks in a row. He was there. Now I haven't seen him the last couple of times. I don't know if he just moved out of the area or what, but beautiful cat. But boy, when it calls out when it's dark, you will shit your pants. It will freak you out. But
so let me see if I can get the clearing up again. The clearing looks very ominous.
Yeah. The clearing is just like 1/4 of the clearing because I'm actually standing photographing one end of it. But I just wanted people to understand what the edges, the tree line edges look like.
Yeah, it's interesting. People find that stuff interesting. They want to see what you're talking about.
Well, I'm just trying to give people an image to go with the description. So you can see in this, this isn't really heavily like pine tree forest here. A lot of poplars, this looks a lot different because this was in March when I very first discovered the clearing, took the pictures. I don't now since then when I started using it, I never bring anything powered in, but I do take a non-powered, the old style camera, the click and wind type, just in case I see something interesting. But all these what appears to be dead is all green now this time of year, and it's heavily, you can't see into it really.
Right.
But this is probably the denser end of the clearing. I mean, you can see to the right, there's a giant tall tree that ain't even in the picture. There's a bunch of them around the other end of it, but this is kind of the end where I leave stuff because, you can see even with the little saplings and things that grow that, even if wind was to blow a ball somewhere, I always leave it on the downwind side. So you can't blame it on wind if it was moved, but you couldn't roll a ball 80 yards across that thing. I mean, even if a bear was going to try to push it with its nose, it wouldn't leave the type of hair we're finding in it. It wouldn't leave the sebum that's on them. I mean, there's really nothing you could say that would convince me, even begin to convince me that we're not interacting with Bigfoot on this site. So, and a bear can't unhook my kayak paddle just to play a trick on me, and there's other things like the fluorescent blue flagging tape that we tie into a cedar branch where we leave a polished rock, and I come back on Friday, the rock's gone and the flagging tape was taken out of the branch. I should have gave you a picture of that, but it just tied it in half knots where it looks like it's braided about 15 times. It's about a 8-inch section of just plastic flagging tape that's all braided through it, and it left it lay. It just left it lay there. So
well, there we go. That's all the stuff I was trying to bring up. I'm actually glad that I wanted to dedicate just one show to this and then talk about your research in the last show. It's better that way because it would have taken a hell of a long time to get through all of the videos and for Doug to talk about his upcoming documentary, Legend Meets Science 2, right?
Yeah. You know, I think all three of these videos that we've done now, Colonel, they all kind of link together. I mean, the first one I
Yeah,
shared my encounter when I was 18, and people, when they hear that encounter, that a lot, if they haven't heard it, but they learn about the research I'm doing, they say, well, what led you to do research? Well, go back and listen to the encounter. That's where it
right.
starts. You have an encounter like that, at some point you're going to say, I'd like to learn more, right? And then talking about the research and how I've been very, very fortunate to have a mentor involved in the research like Doug, because he lives very close to me. We are in the same area. Um, and then, you know, I think this is just this third video here that we're doing tonight is just an opportunity for people to kind of get a visual, because it's hard. Like, it's hard for me when I hear people talk about, you know, uh, skunk ape in Florida, and they're describing to me an experience. You know, I'm thinking to myself, well, what does it look like? What do the trees
Right.
look like there? What's
Yeah.
the river look like? What's the, when you say swamp, what do you mean? Is it all water? Is it, I mean, I know how important these visuals are to help people kind of understand what's being told to them. So I hope these are helpful for people to at least draw that mental picture of when you hear about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now you know what it looks like where we're doing it, you know?
Well, it's like when people on Bigfoot Sasquatch Chronicles are talking about, they're trying to describe the scenery. I can never get a proper picture of where they're talking about. Sometimes I can, but you have to be a good storyteller to paint all that stuff in, without photographs, you know?
I think that helps make your story feel genuine too. I mean, I've gotten to a point now where when I share my encounter, I really don't care if somebody believes me or not. The burden of, you know, the level of proof you require to be a believer or not, that isn't my responsibility. That's yours. You decide when you've gotten there, not me. I don't have some burden of turning you into a believer when I share my
Yeah.
encounter. But when you brought it, here's a good example, Sasquatch Chronicles. I mean, look, there's like 60,000 people or more that follow that page, that group on Facebook, and they've got hundreds upon hundreds of episodes over the years where people have shared their stories, right?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I don't know if I believe them all. I mean, I
No.
listen to some of them and they're very believable, right? And then some of them, I don't, maybe it's just the way the story's told. I think, oh, that seems embellished or whatever.
Yeah.
But you start drawing a correlation that the people who don't come off maybe to you as maybe being believable or genuine, some of those stories are really just lacking in detail. They simply just didn't share what it was they were seeing. If you can take me on a journey, so to speak, when you explain your encounter to me, I can really relate to where you were that day. I can feel that experience, you know. And if you're not able to do that, you're unfortunately, and these are people that probably have very true encounters that happen to them, but simply because they don't take the time to put the detail in how they tell what happened, it gets hard for people to connect to and go on that journey and get it, you know.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for coming back on and getting the opportunity to clear all that stuff up that I couldn't figure out the other night.
Yeah,
That was
well,
great.
you and me both. I mean, I like I say, I mean, when it comes to the technical stuff, a lot of times I got to slow Doug down. He'll start telling me technically how to do this, do that. I'm like, hey, back up a minute.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
a real, I'm
I
a
was
real
getting,
estate broker. I'm not an IT guy. I'm not a camera wizard. I
yeah.
didn't produce 200 episodes of some show. I don't know what I'm doing with this technical stuff.
Yeah. I was having overload the other night because, a lot of stuff was getting explained to me and I'm trying to work out these photographs. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to the story because there's enough here to
Well,
keep me occupied.
you had mentioned how you had gone on a really long hike that day and everything.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when I go on a Thursday and have to paddle that far and hike that far and then paddle out, and then on Friday do it all over again, paddle in, collect everything, hike in, hike back out, paddle all the way out. I spend most of my Saturdays and Sundays just like in a coma. I mean, if I had to try to do something technical at that point, I just my brain takes a little bit to get going again. I'm 53. I'm not in terribly great shape. It takes me some recovery time. So when you said you'd gone on a big hike the other night and you felt like, oh, I was in a little bit of a funk, I get it. I know what that's like. So, but.
All right, well, guys, thanks very much for showing up, everybody, and I'm going to get this up on YouTube as soon as I can. And thanks again for coming on, Jeff.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody hopping on and sharing their stuff. I always like going back and reading the comments that happen in the live comments. It's hard to pay attention to them when you're talking on camera.
Oh, I know. It takes a day. It takes a day for the live comments to come up. They come up the next day after it's processed and stuff.
I put a lot of stock into those comments because, the people who are taking the time and to join in on these casts, some shows are put out there on YouTube by people who are just out to, for the notoriety and whatnot. And then there's researchers who do shows like yourself that feature other researchers sharing info. And you find that most of the people who are listening aren't just here to hear a cool story. They're researchers too. I mean, so the idea that everybody who's commenting right now they're all going to play a part in this unlocking this. I mean, it's not going to be some $1 million funded TV celebrity who comes up with the right DNA or the right camera footage. It's going to be somebody who was sitting in a chat just like we are tonight.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everybody taking the time to hop on.
All right, Jeff. Well, thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks.
All right. Good night.